Good evening, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of Candid Conversations. Today, joining me are Charmaine, Giri, and Michael speaking on sustainability. Sustainability on health, sustainability on agri-commodities, and sustainability in culinary. Thank you, you three, for joining me in. Charmaine is a consultant nutritionist and an author. She has over 3 decades of experience in assisting people to improve their health through better nutrition and natural care. Kitchen Clinic with Charmaine. She's taught nutrition and dietetics at Sophia College for over 18 years and also to the staff at the Just Lok Hospital. She's a member of the Indian Dietetic Association and is also associated with the Mumbai University for assessment and paper settings. She's an author of 2 nutrition books, Kitchen Clinic and Blood, Sugar and Spice. Her 3rd book, Good Health Always, is in waiting and will be out very soon. Charmaine conducts Good Health Always with Charmaine workshops, which are focused talks on food, and she does food demos on various relevant subjects. She also conducts health webinars, consults for FICCI, the WPO, the YPO, a lot of celebrities, schools and hospitals. Charmaine, delighted to have you here. Thank you very much. Second guest is Giridhar Rao. He is Vice President Operations of a company called Terova, which is a subsidiary of Griffith Foods. Giri has over 3.5 decades of experience with a master's in rural management. Giri is a veteran in managing agricultural raw materials, herbs, and spices. Having worked with Cancor, Marico, VKL, and Reliance, he's worked in the fields of oleorescence, edible oils, FMCG, and spice sourcing. Giri is a grassroots man. He has spent years in understanding supply chain management and origins of agri-commodities. He's extremely passionate about sustainability, and he developed what is now known as the Griffith Sustainably Sourced Program for Spices and Herbs, which has led a global company like Griffith Foods, a 101-year-old company, to have a business vertical now called Terova, which is headed by Giri. Giri is actively involved in farmer training programs and development programs for their families as well. He's been with Griffith Foods for over 10 years, and he heads a dedicated team for sourcing and global partnerships for sustainable practices. Giri, thank you so much. I couldn't have had a better person to speak on sustainability in agri-commodities than you. Thank you so much. Last but not the least, Chef Michael Swami. Who doesn't know of him? He's an author, chef, and a food media specialist. He's a wildlife photographer, an avid traveler, a film producer. He's also a 3-time Gourmand Award winner and is an alumnus of the Le Cordon Bleu, UK. And he likes to see life through images and stories. He's one of the pioneering chefs in food media. As a food stylist, he has conceptualized major food shows on general entertainment channels in India and some niche channels internationally as well. He's an author of The East Indian Kitchen, Masala Dabba, Easy Guide to Pairing Indian Food with Wine. As a chef patron, he has created several restaurant brands, setting a benchmark for global cuisine in India. His work with Pagdandi safaris and forest menu in the northern parts of India, he has created a niche market. He's going to speak to us in depth about that. Michael is also associated with the Welcome Group School of Hotel Administration and Symbiosis, where he teaches and sets up courses on food media. Michael, a warm welcome to you and thank you for joining in. I'm taking this opportunity to share that coming Thursday, 10th of September, I'm speaking with 3 very, very passionate and talented friends of mine who are also chefs on culinary craft. Take a snapshot. The link is there. I'll be happy to have you next Thursday. And on Saturday, with Tanaz, Jiten, and Prasanna on international trade, travel, and international business, a road to recovery. Thank you, and I hopefully will see you on Thursday and Saturday. With this, I'm going to put an end to the screen share and request my panelists to put on their cameras, and we start the conversation. Hello, Harsh. Hello, Kshitij. Thank you for joining in once again. Giri, Michael, and Shamin, if you can unmute yourselves and say a quick hello to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello and good evening.
Lovely to have all of you here. Giri?
Yes, nice to be here.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. We'll start with some quick opening statements. Shamin, you first, Michael, and then Giri. Quickly about yourselves, what I have missed, why you're doing what you're doing, and a little bit about sustainability in your field. I have lots of questions to ask you, so wait for me to finish those, but you could start with the opening statements on this.
Okay, so firstly, Satyan, thank you for your kind words and for inviting me to be a part of Candid Conversations on Sustainability. And hi, Michael and Giri, looking forward to an interaction which I'm sure is going to be very fruitful this evening. Welcome to all those who've taken time off to participate in our webinar today. And I'm sure today's topic is going to have a lot of take-home value. I, for one, I'm going to be talking a lot about herbs and spices, and I'm sure Giri and Michael are also going to be doing a lot of talking on the things that interest them and the things that they are working with. So, like Satyan mentioned, I'm a nutritionist. But what I do is slightly different from what the other nutritionists do. Of course, I plan basic diets, but I also prescribe a herb and spice mix, or at least I give out the recipe of a herb and spice mix to each of my clients, and they use that along with an infused water, which again I recommend to them, so that it improves their health in a faster manner. So that's what I generally do on a daily basis, and I've been doing this for the last 3 decades.
Thank you, Shamin.
Most welcome.
Michael, opening statement from you.
Hi, everyone. So I started out to be a chef, and whilst being a chef, I realized that every year there are so many chefs coming out that it was important to do something different, something new. And that's when I got into this whole sustainability thing a couple of years ago. So I'm glad to be here talking about it.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you and welcome. Giri?
Thanks, Satyan, and welcome everyone. I'm very happy to be here on this webinar and try to share some of my experiences, which, like Satyan has already mentioned, involves sustainability, agri-commodities, spices, herbs. It's been a long journey for me, almost 35 years when we started up, and I see, a lot of changes in the way these commodities are being handled. And sustainability, yes, it has been very much a part of the way I have been sourcing raw materials, especially in the last 7 to 8 years. It all started when I joined Griffith Foods about 10 years back. And the main issue there was, the quality and adulteration that happens in spices and herbs, and how do we handle that. And it took us step by step. We did making improvements, and then ultimately we were told that what we were doing is sustainable. I can explain more later on when Satyan asks some questions. So basically, we started off without us knowing that we were doing these things which are sustainable, but it has really helped us, and I hope I can share some of these experiences the rest of the webinar. So back to Satyan.
Thank you, Giri. And once again, all three of you, super delighted to have each one of you, super professionals in your field and who I look up to. So I'm going to straight, go to Mike. Mike, some of us know, most of us know, but for the audience who is probably new and are not aware of your work in the sustainability space, Park Dundee Safaris and Forest Menu. Spend some time talking to us about how it started, what motivated you, and how does one go about, being a part of that?
So I've always had this passion for wildlife ever since I've been a kid. And when I started working with the safaris and the lodges, I used to travel a lot to see tigers, especially in Kana. And then I got involved with Pagdandi safaris. And a lot of the menus were very Punjabi oriented. You used to have the usual palak paneer, butter chicken, all the heavy tandoori stuff. And guests wanted something different. Most of the guests are foreigners. And that's when we started growing our own on the property, having our own organic farm, getting the seeds from Bombay or from Delhi, and actually growing zucchini. And I've grown so many English vegetables where they weren't seen before. And we were also taking a lot of the rural produce, the lentils, the millets that were grown there, and putting them on the menu. And that's how we started changing the whole mindset of people and making food more sustainable. We don't have any canned produce, no Tetra packs, nothing. Everything is as locally sourced as possible.
Super. I know you're feeling a little, you're restraining yourself from talking a little bit more, but I'm gonna push you on that. You're making it sound very simple. It's not, right?
It's not.
Cooking in the forests, cooking in the live, having people involved with, picking fruits and vegetables. Whilst the excitement is there for people, honestly, tell me, does it just stay at excitement level, or do they do something about it once they go back to their lives?
Some of them continue doing it because we encourage them to do it. Some of them are very excited to do it. We have a lot of hailstorms there. And this time we'd grown a whole batch of all these colored tomatoes and stuff. And we had a hailstorm one night and the entire garden was flattened out. So yes, you do have difficulties to deal with, staff to deal with. Trainings, the local staff is another challenge because they are also used to this very, just cook kind of attitude. But when you're trying to tell them that with the vegetables, you need to cook them just for a minute or two, not cooking them to death, stuff like that. So bringing about change is a long, slow process. It's taken a couple of years. But yes, now the staff have gotten the hang of it.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Shamin, I'm going to, come to you next. And I really, you have a very impressive client list, if I may say so, with a lot of humility. Okay. And how does it work? How do you work and manage egos, first and foremost? And two, how do you get them to convince them to lead a healthy life?
So most importantly, Satyan, when I'm looking at a blood report, and this I mentioned in the first book, Kitchen Clinic, when I'm looking at a blood report, it could be a minister, it could be the chief minister of whatever, and it could be my maid's sister-in-law. It's just a blood report to me, right? And I'm out there to encourage holistic health. So I'm not looking at, oh, this is a film star or this is whatever, someone in the corporate world who's high up in the corporate world who's going to be taking instructions from me or whatever. I'm just looking to try and better or try and improve their health. So we just set up basic sustainable health rules for them. And I would say like 70 to 90% of the time they listen to what we are saying. As a side, maybe 100% of the time their spouses have already told them the same things, right? And they will not listen. But the minute you start talking to them, and in all these years, I have never had to convince people that, you have to do something for your health unless I'm talking to a 5-year-old. So if I'm talking to a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old diabetic child, then probably I'll have to sit him down and say that, you shouldn't be, or tell her that you shouldn't be eating sugar, please don't, or whatever it is. But when it comes to an adult who's supposed to actually have, taking their health in their own hands and being proactive about their health, then I just give them the basic guideline that, look, you need to eat well, look at preventive measures from your herbs and spices, because that's what I deal with. I tell them that you need to sleep well, encourage them to drink a lot more water, decrease the alcohol, stop smoking, the general rules. And when it comes to an ailment, so when they come in with kidney disease or when they come in with liver disease or cirrhosis or whatever it is, very matter-of-factly give them the scenario of, if they let their health kind of don't take cognizance of the fact that their blood levels or their blood work is extremely, in the above normal or whatever. It just means that this is what is going to happen. So I very nicely tell them about dialysis or about amputations and things like that. And most of the time, I would say about 95% of the time, it works. Because you're just stating it matter of factly. You're not trying to scare them. You're not trying to, tell them that this is my way or the highway. You're just trying to explain to them that, look, if you did this, it could improve. So they just follow.
Okay, great. Wait, I'll come back for more on that. I have a few more pushing to do with you on that. But I want to move to Giri. Giri, please talk us through the entire sustainability of the, sustainably sourced spices, herbs, and now a new vertical that Griffith has created called Terroir.
Right.
The origin of that, and what does sustainability in ingredients mean actually?
Right, Satyan, like in my introduction, I said, it all started with our, the problem of how do we solve the issues in quality and adulteration, which was a very big issue in those days. And our company had spent a lot of money in settling customers' claims, which also eroded the brand image of Griffith Foods, which, as you know, was developed over a long period of 100 years. And when we started working on this, we said that we should go back, trace back in the supply chain and see how spices are grown, how they're processed, how they are handled. And we started with that. We went one step back. We started working with our suppliers. But we found that that is not a wholesome solution. That's just a small part of the total solution. So we kept on going back in the supply chain until we reached the guys who are actually growing the spices and started working with them. And that is where, most of the, solutions for these problems, were found. And when we started improving the way spices are grown, the pesticides that were being used, that was another major issue because most of the spices that were grown were available were not fit for meeting any country's regulations. So we had to work with the farmers. However, as we started working with the farmers, we felt that in order to make this relationship long-lasting and permanent, we have to involve them in what we are doing. We have to give back to them some of the benefits that are coming out of these, programs of working with them. That's how the first seeds of sustainability, as we see today, were sown. And then, we started doing a lot of things for the benefit of farmers. We are not tying up farmers with any kind of contract. So how do you make them come back to you year after year? Because you have trained them, you have brought in a lot of good practices in agriculture, in post-harvest management, and you don't want to lose the loyalty of these farmers. So we started doing a lot of community development work for the farmers, for the families, for the villages. We created, farmer welfare committees. And they gave us suggestions what could be done. Somewhere it was problem of drinking water, somewhere it was problem of not being able to go to school or not being able to sit properly in the school, no benches. There was many and we tried to solve those issues and start gaining loyalty of the farmers. So that helped us. In a way, we did not really do anything out of the way, like we did not do any charity, we did not do any philanthropy, but still we found that we were benefiting the farmers, and farmers in turn were giving back to us in terms of good quality, good practices. So that's how it started. So then we were told that what we are doing, what my team has been doing is really sustainable. And then we started measuring, what we are doing. We went into certification, so that we strengthen the initial concepts that we developed. So that's how the entire sustainability program started in Griffith, which has been the sustainable program itself has been very sustainable, and now normally almost 90% of these spices that we buy are all through traceable sources all the way to farmers who are all sustainable, who follow sustainable practices in agriculture, in post-harvest management. Now, coming to Terova, somewhere down the line, the company felt that all the good things we have been doing, we need to expand this, both in terms of making it available to others who would helping other companies also to have sustainable supply chains to source spices, herbs, and other commodities in a sustainable way, that makes them free of any kind of risks of not following regulations of a country, or not following ethical practices, and so on and so forth. So these are all the benefits that these practices bring to the table, and Terova is basically trying to expand the base of farmers as well as the customers who are like-minded and who would like to benefit from this.
Great, thank you. Mike, as a chef, you've curated a lot of menus, you've run and operated restaurants for a lot of celebrities and non-celebrities as well. And you're extremely passionate about cooking and photography yourself. How difficult is it from when you wear a chef's hat? There's one part which is the profitability part that you got to look at, that menu planning, returns. And then the other part, which is your heart, which is sustainability. And not always would the owners or the people who are investing money feel for sustainability. So how do you manage that anomaly in your life?
So one thing what we did right from the beginning was to cut down the size of a menu. Rather than having these Bible menus, maximum 30 to 40 dishes on a menu. That brings down your whole costs. It brings down your overheads quite a bit. Your stock control is even less in the kitchen. So you're manipulating all your ingredients in such a manner. And when you're playing with those ingredients is where you're playing with profitability. At times you have something like, say, 20 lakhs worth of goods in your godown. And when you're reducing it to half and making sure that it's being used, there are times when there are tins of, say, tomatoes or stuff like that, just lying there for months on end not being used because the stuff is not being ordered on the menu. So you have to bring down your costs. Instead of flying in fish from South America, I'm using sea bass from Goa. Again, you're cutting down the air miles, you're cutting down a lot of the transport issues. Like if something is coming in all the way from South America, it comes from South America, it goes to Africa, then it goes up to Europe, and then it comes to India. It just doesn't come in one straight route. So if you look at how much gas and oils are being used by ships, it's a huge amount. So as a chef, it's your duty to know where your produce is coming from, knowing your farmers, as Giri said, knowing the chemicals that are going into the food. But at the end of the day, you're feeding a person. You're not, and the customer is paying money for it. So as a chef, it's your responsibility to give him value for money, to give him a good, nutritious meal. Yes, he may be wanting butter chicken and tandoori chicken and all that. So for every portion of meat, I give 3 portions of vegetables with it. On the plate, I do that. Now a restaurant will just give you that plate of meat with just that little bit of onions on the side. No, I maybe reduce the quantity of meat and add a lot more vegetables on the side. But that's my initiative as a chef. I'm giving it to you. You don't want to eat it, that's your call. But yes, I'm giving you the nutrition on the plate as well. I used to make salads. Used to have salad of the day, which went out with virtually every starter, meat starter. So from a chef's point of view, yes, I'm giving the customer his value for money, plus I'm putting nutrition on the table, whether he wants it or doesn't want it. The choice is his.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Shamin, coming to you, you do a lot of cooking with herbs and spices as a part of your practice and the program. You've written a book as well on healthy cooking. How do you see this in the long run? And again, my question is pointed, is it just a fad? Is it only for the rich? The poor don't need this kind of stuff? And how do you reach a mass, more mass than what it is currently? Some thoughts on that?
Okay, so basically we all know that what we ultimately put on our plate and then put into our body will impact our health and also the environment. So, if you're talking, like Mike said, about carbon footprint, etc., in terms of, how much of oil and gas, etc., is being utilized for produce to come into our country or onto our plate. So I truly believe in mindful cooking as well as mindful eating. So we talk a lot about intuitive eating, etc. Eat when your body requires those nutrients. But if there is mindful eating coupled with that, mindful cooking coupled with the mindful eating, then that becomes your core premise. So what would the general public need to pay attention to? Where you purchase your food grains, right? Where do you source your fruits, your vegetables, your milk, your meats, fish, etc. And for most of the time, try as far as possible to eat the fresh produce that has been locally grown and eat it as quickly as possible. So you buy organic and whatever vegetables, and then you choose to eat them 17 days later. So you've already deprived your body of the nourishment. Then you also, when you're cooking, you need to look at ways that help to reduce, for example, the nutrient waste. So if you're boiling and overboiling something and it is a water-soluble vitamin or it is not stable to high heating temperature, then again, you're decreasing the nutritive value of that food. And also, and that's the premise of the new book, the Good Health Always cookbook, that we look at reducing edible food waste. So the book has, and when we cook also at home, and I encourage people to cook, we tell them to use the peel, the seeds, the pith, and everything else. In fact, recently we put up on one of our Instagram stories, we use the belly, the fiber of the red pumpkin to make these cutlets, which ultimately tasted, we used our Eastern bottle masala, it ultimately tasted like the tiny prawns that you get, the kardi, tasted exactly like those kardi cutlets. So how you cook and how mindful you are of that waste, the edible waste, and not throwing out produce which can be ultimately used, is something that goes a long way in improving your health as well as saving the environment. Because when you eat intuitively, and again, when you focus on how your meal nurtures and nourishes your body, and you eat with gratitude, then that goes a long way in helping you maintain good health. So if you're eating in disgust and you're not sure of your produce and you're unhappy while you're eating, then in the long run, it is going to affect your health. I tell patients or clients or people who want to discuss food with me to follow whatever eating pattern is sustainable to them. So I'm not here to say do not follow keto. Of course, I will tell you that the ketogenic diet was formulated for people with a particular health condition, right? For autistic children, etc. So I'm going to tell you what it is actually formulated for, what it is good for, or that an intermittent fasting has certain negative points also, so we can discuss them later. Or you should be gluten-free if you have celiac disease, or lactose-free if you're lactose intolerant, not otherwise. But whatever is sustainable in the long run, say for the rest of your life. So if you're changing, you're making it a lifestyle change. You're deciding that you are going to not eat sugar. It shouldn't be that you're not going to eat sugar for the next 3 days or next 1 week or next 2 months. But if you decide that it's something that is sustainable for the rest of your life, then go ahead with what you're doing. And if it's not damaging in any way, that's the most important.
Great, thanks, Shaman. Giri, I want to touch base on you on 2 points. One is you mentioned traceable ingredients and traceability of raw materials, which is a great thing to have. Today, globally, most big business houses in the food space and their supply chain management loves traceability. My 2 straight points to you are, how difficult is it to maintain traceability? And 2, how does it impact cost?
Right. So traceability is something which goes hand in glove with your attempts to be a sustainable sourcing company, because there is a big world out there, and not everybody is doing things the right way. So when you start off, you need to identify a group of farmers or a group of villages which you want to adopt and bring in some good practices. So how do you then make sure, because you can't be at all the places at all the time, how do you make sure that what you're sourcing is exactly coming from these programs that you started? That is point number one. Point number two is, how do you make sure that all the things you want to happen are happening? So because of these two concerns, we really need to have what we call as traceability. Traceability is nothing but being able to tell exactly how the crop was grown, who grew it, what methods were followed for growing it, how it was transported, where it was stored, and how it was processed, and how it was shipped. If you are able to answer these questions, then you have developed a traceable system. Now, what are the benefits? Traceable system has its own cost. However, my personal feeling is that the benefits overweigh all the costs that you incur in establishing a traceable system. So the benefit number one is that, like I said, you are able to control your entire supply chain, if you have a good traceable system. Secondly, you are able to prove to your customers that what you are doing, what you are saying you are doing, which is very important. Because today people are going beyond what is said on the labels. They are going beyond the claims. They want to know how you are ensuring that this is happening. So we feel that by this dual weapons of sustainability and traceability, we are able to really permanently solve a lot of issues that we were facing in the supply chain, the food safety part of it, but also like Mike was saying, rationalizing some of the things we were doing. Do we really need to have so many ingredients? Can we do with minimum number of them? Do you need to have so many variations of the same thing? So these kind of questions were asked, because when we talked about traceability, there is a limitation. These questions automatically come up if you are doing the things right. So that's how this has really helped us. And how difficult it is? Yes, initially, because this is something which has to do with a number of smallholder farmers. And that's how most of the spices and herbs are grown in India, in any other country. It's a collection of small farmers, number of them. So you need to bring all of them together. You have to group them. So it's initially it is going to be tough, but as you keep doing it, you learn this, and it becomes something which becomes really part of what you need to do, and you develop the expertise for doing it. So you develop a team who knows how it has to be done. So it becomes easy going forward. But when you start off, it is going to be challenging, and we need to be prepared to face these challenges.
Sure. Thank you, Giri. Michael, I'm going to come to you with the next part. And one is, of course, we're going to stick to food, but in a recipe and in a menu planning, how do you keep the whole sustainability part alive? I know you mentioned and you touched upon a few points that you would use a local sea bass or an Indian sea bass. Rightly so. We are a 70% agrarian country, but yet most of the menus want imported vegetables, or most of the menus on restaurants or hotels want imported food. Now, I'm sharing something with you, particularly Michael. There's some comment that happened, or actually an article that was going around on social media about how suddenly this chef realized that there was local produce available, and he tried a few recipes, and he was thrilled that it was even better than what the original stuff was. It didn't need a COVID for us to realize that, point number one. But coming to you, in a straightforward way, when you plan your menu, and I know you've done this consciously, this is not for today, and you've been doing this, how difficult is it? to have a seasonal and a restricted menu? You need to unmute yourself.
It's not very difficult. Like when we were at in the villages, some of my staff had come. They've been working there for 3 or 4 years. They'd not even gone to the local market until I arrived. So I literally took them. So everything was through vendors and stuff like that. Now, when I was in the UK, we used to get up at 5:30 in the morning, be at the local market, and then you start your restaurant work, which is not happening in this country. Chefs are just dependent on a vendor. The vendor said, I will get you this. He's not bothered about where is it coming from. He doesn't know the farmer. There was this guy in Delhi. He was a chef turned farmer who was growing his own microgreens, growing his own vegetables. And I used to go to the farm once a month. And he said, Chef, you're the only person who comes here. And I said, so, and then slowly the other chefs who I knew, I used to take them. And then they started going there once a month. They started interacting with him. His circle grew bigger. Chefs started getting to know more about sustainability. So the thing is, not only me doing it, but getting others to do it. I think that's a very important role to play. Because it would be selfish of me just to do it for myself. You know, take other chefs. They may be interested, they may not be, but you've done your bit by taking them out there.
So do you think, Michael, guests who come into restaurants and F&B spaces, do they really care about sustainably sourced product?
A lot of them do. If you as the chef or you as the manager, educate them in a friendly manner, make a joke about it, talk about the experience, yes, they will accept it. If you're going to just say, here's your dish and put it in front of them, the answer is no. It's like a petulant child, you know, you have to coax the child. So I've got this beautiful salad today. It's made with X, Y, Z ingredients. I'm going to send you out a small portion. If you like it, I'll send you out some more. That's how you build up the whole thing. So when I saw, like, for example, I was talking about, I'll give a steak on a plate and I'll give this beautiful millet salad on the side. So you've given it to the guest to experience it. He doesn't like it. He will still finish it because he's paid for it. He's not going to waste it. So rather than wait for a guest to order something, put it on the plate and let him try it.
Sure. Great. Thank you. I wish it was as simple. It is simple, but I wish there were more people in the F&B business who would, practice this simple things. Thank you, Michael. Shamin, I want to come to you. You do a lot of organic food, and I know, there's a huge difference in organic food and sustainable food, superfoods. There are definitions. Everyone can look them up. But the point I want to come to you, and then I'll move to Michael and Giri for their perspective, is there is this tremendous organic food fraud that is there in India and overseas, and purely from a labeling perspective.
Okay.
Anything that is labeled as organic supposedly sells, right? Any thoughts on that? Of course, please do talk on organic food as well and how you use them in your recipes. But I am also interested to know about organic food fraud.
Okay, so I'll start on a lighter note. A couple of years ago, I was asked to judge some food competition or something about, the nutritive value, etc., that the little kids were presenting. And it was a typical food space in South Mumbai, actually at the World Trade Center. And there was this, what I looked at the board, it said, the regular gola, the ice lollies that you have, the gola wala standing there with all those colors and whatever. And it clearly said organic gola. So naturally, every South Mumbai parent and child standing patiently in line, I decided, okay, let me see what he's doing. So I was so interested, I thought maybe beetroots for the red color, and he's using some spinach and whatever else. And because coincidentally, we were also using spinach in our brownies, or testing spinach in our brownies at that time. So I stood there patiently, walked up, moved in, moved ahead. And then I looked, at all the regular glass bottles and look like regular color. So I said, "Bhaiya, ye beet hai, like, is this beet pureed or is this spinach?" And he looked at me like I was mad. He said, "Nahi, bhabhi, ye color, I mean, whatever, it's a regular stuff." So I said, "You put organic there." So he said, "Haan, Bisleri pani to hai na." So when you talk about buzzwords and when you talk about gluten-free and you talk about organic, right? And you talk about everything that is kind of a fad nowadays, when people don't even understand what they are setting out to do, then it's extremely, extremely important to find out from where the produce is coming, right? And when we try to work on with recipes, etc., we also work with people who are very, very focused. And most of these people who procure, for example, gherkins, etc., are people who are also doing this for countries abroad. So in the UK, there are a lot of stringent rules. So when we have people in India, like in Bangalore itself, and off Bangalore, and who source out ingredients for pickling, whether it's gherkins or whether it's carrots or whether it's baby corn, what they have to tell us is that not only does that parcel of land, that farmer, have to have an certified organic in terms of the produce, in terms of the soil, in terms of the water being tested, but each and every farm surrounding that particular farm has to have that certification in order for countries like the UK and the US to then accept that this is totally organic. Out here, sadly, it doesn't happen. You have to, the vegetable guy tells me, he says, "Bhabhi, you just have to put a little more matti on the carrots," and people believe that it is organic. It has to be slightly misshapen and people believe it is organic. So actually sourcing out quality ingredients, actually sourcing out food that is really and truly organic is a big task in this country. I mean, and that's my belief.
Great, thanks. Giri, thoughts on organic food fraud in your line of business? And generally otherwise as well.
Yeah, I tend to agree with both Mike and Shanvin. I really don't believe in the authenticity of organic certification. However, I'm a big believer of organic practices. Organic certification is unfortunately something which has been manipulated, and people are happy to go with certification. However, if you really test the product, the chances are that 9 out of 10 times you will find that they are contaminated with a chemical pesticide or a chemical fertilizer has been used. However, the bigger question is on organic practices. If talking about India, India in the 1950s, India was not self-sufficient in food, so we had to resort to something known, what is popularly known as the Green Revolution. Where the key principle of Green Revolution was high dosage of use of high dosage of chemical fertilizers in order to increase the productivity of the farms, which at that time was the need of the hour, which has helped India to become highly self-reliant or self-sufficient in food production. However, nowadays, we are facing the side effects of the ill effects of overuse of fertilizers. We have found that in some of the studies we have organized, that because of the overuse of chemical fertilizers, the organic content of the soil has dropped to a very precariously low levels. This is an irreparable damage. It will take years to bring back the organic content in the soil back to the original level. You have to continuously apply compost and organic manure, which is a very difficult task. So this is the real, bad effect of being inorganic or use of chemicals. So according to me, we need to be very practical about it. We have to bring in good organic practices, try to reduce the use of chemicals, come up with ways of being, more eco-friendly, use organic, scientifically derived or organic manure and organic chemicals to ward off pests. These kind of practices without really worrying about certification is what is the need of the hour. That's my view on these things.
Michael, your thoughts on the organic food fraud, particularly in the F&B space, both as a chef purchasing raw material and also, and I say this with a very heavy heart, and I know you will agree with me, there are a lot of chefs and restaurateurs who do organic food fraud on their menu. They just claim it as organic when we know and they know it's not. Some thoughts on that from your side, Michael, please? Mute. You're muted.
Sorry. It's huge. And to curtail it, like I said earlier, chefs need to go to meet the farmers, chefs need to interact with the vendors. No more the market, you have your purchase manager. He's your middleman. We all know what happens to the middleman, what all he's up to. But chefs need to go and check what is coming up. Chefs need to meet with farmers. Chef needs to know their suppliers. And the minute you start, as a chef, start asking questions, things will change. That's what I feel.
Okay, great. So I'm just taking a little pause. For all of you who are new to this session, you have a Q&A section, the audiences. You can pop in your questions, they will come to us and I will be taking them as I'm taking them right now. So panelists, I'm just quickly reading out. Mr. Vyas says, okay, thank you for your kind words, Mr. Vyas, really appreciate. Kayosh is saying, hi ma'am Shamin. Vinayka says, delighted to see and hear Shamin and Michael. Chef Puneet Arora, good evening and welcome. Chef Satish Arora, good evening and welcome. Delighted to have both of you here. Chef Puneet says, extremely informative, absolutely enjoying every bit of the conversation. I've had the privilege to be taught by Ma'am Shamin. My respects to her. I wish I could have tapped more in the wealth of knowledge that she has. Thank you, Puneet. And Chef Satish Arora, Chef says, Chef Michael, I'm very happy to know that you are going to local market for your ingredients. When I was an executive chef at the Taj, I used to do market survey twice a month with my chefs. It helped me a lot, and suppliers were also careful when they bought fresh provisions to the hotel. It helped me in maintaining good cost. Thank you, Chef. And Alan DeMello says, Swami sir has always been an excellent leader in sustainable cooking. He is one of India's hidden heroes. Absolutely. He's hidden out of choice, not out of anything else. He's happy in that way. Okay, so I'm going to move to a quick point, and maybe I want to address this to Giri. Giri, the sustainability part, traceable ingredients, all that is great. As a company, Griffith Foods is doing, I know I've been with you and in that company for long. But for the farmers, when we say sustainably sourced, and I'm not talking about Griffith, I'm just talking about in general, okay? Organic food, sustainably sourced, branded stuff being sold in retail. Does it even make a difference to them from a price perspective? Do they get the benefit of them doing hard work for sustainability? In general, I'm not talking about Griffith farmers, I'm talking about in general with your experience of being in the agri-commodity business.
Right. So we are, today in a situation where really farmers will benefit in many respects by being more sustainable farmers. Like I said, in the long run, farmers benefit because their land becomes more productive. As they keep on following sustainable practices, the productivity of the land is preserved. Like I told you, the example of organic matter reducing. When you adopt these practices, in fact, the organic matter starts slowly improving. Like some of the practices, like not to burn the crop, we train them to plow back the residue into the soil, which helps to increase the organic matter. We ask them to use more of, manure, organic manure, and reduce the application of fertilizer. We have them test their soil, and then, based on the soil deficiency, only to apply only those chemicals that are really essential for that soil. So these are all the benefits which farmers have seen. Even if I don't pay them a higher price, they have already benefited from these practices. We also, train them on how to, be more productive, how to use the various farm inputs in a more economic way. So they are basically, we are driving down their cost of cultivation by reducing waste, by not doing things which are not required. Now, normally they are influenced by the local dealers of fertilizers and pesticides who have their own interest in mind. But the farmers really now who are part of our program, they have learned how to really judge on their own what is required for them. This really helps them to bring down their costs. Other bigger benefit is they get access to a different market when they do this, a market that is ready to pay a premium for the produce, which is not available in the regular markets, which doesn't need these kind of products. So the better quality of the products that they really produce can be sold anywhere in the world because it meets the regulation of any country, which opens up a big market for them. So their bargaining power also goes up. So, farmers are definitely benefiting from these programs. And that is the reason, the proof of that is that they come back year after year in order to repeat this. So I think it is not a losing proposition for farmers, it's a winning proposition. And we can, without any doubt, go ahead and promote these practices.
Great, thank you. I want to loop in the sustainability conversation with all three of you. Something about the flavor of the month, if I may say so. I won't use it as a month, but flavor of the year, which is plant-based proteins. Okay, meat protein, as we know, is going to be not enough for the future. For us, in the know, we know that. There's a huge debate that's happening on plant-based burgers and plant-based meat and alternative proteins, etc. We don't want to go there, but I want to ask you particularly about the fact that there are companies as old as last week, there's $13 billion investment in a company on immunity boosters on beverage shots. There's $50 million just in 2 companies as an investment on plant-based protein alternatives. India, there are a lot of companies who are doing that. Your thoughts, Michael, first with you on, and you can be as candid as you want to, please. I'd really appreciate that. But the pro and the con of that, Charmaine next and Giri thereafter. Same question.
See, if you look at it, India has always been a vegetarian country. Okay, from my perspective, plant-based protein is everything that is coming out of vegetables. We have such a huge gamut of vegetables, which you don't see in Europe, you don't see in America, as you would see it over here. But getting our source of protein from them because of the chemicals has been limited. And so how much of a bad thing it is, because I'm sure too much of a good thing is also has a bad effect on us, as Charmaine ma'am will also say. I mean, a protein...
Moderation is key.
Yeah, moderation has always been key. She taught it to us in college then, moderation. I remember ma'am used to say, eat what you want, but eat it in moderation.
That's true.
So, I never paid attention to her classes, and I'm paying for them now, as some of you know.
Yeah, I struggled through ma'am's class in college, but...
No, you were good, Michael.
Yeah, but I still remembered a lot of things,
I'm so glad.
Okay, Mike, your thoughts on immunity boosters as shots and liquids, quickly before I move to Charmaine and Giri on the same thing.
Again, how good is it? What are the adverse effects of it? As a chef, even I don't know what they are, So I may be a culinary person, but would I give it to a guest? Would I, are we overdoing it to a point of view?
So, the true and honest Michael that you are, that I have known you for so many years, I wouldn't expect anything else than the way you answered. I know so many chefs and friends who have decided to go on this bandwagon of immunity boosters, put them on the menu, and when I ask them the same questions offline, their answers are, it sells, I'm making money, and I'm okay to sell that. So thank you for your honesty. Ma'am Shamin, your thoughts on plant-based proteins and immunity boosters? I know you do some of them in your magic that you
I'm going to come to it. I'm going to come to it. So the first thing is, let's talk about plant-based meals and meats. As Michael said, we are primarily a vegetarian country. We derive our protein from pulses. Typically, we derive our protein from pulses. So it holds true that when you're looking at a mock meat, the protein that is going to come from that mock meat is going to be soy protein, is going to be pea protein, is going to be protein from potato, etc. But if you're a hardcore non-vegetarian, and for health reasons, for reasons of saving the planet and whatever it is, if you are finding it extremely, extremely difficult to move totally to a plant-based diet, then this mock meat or all these meat substitutes or plant-based substitutes can be used as what we call transitional foods. So when you're gradually moving to a totally vegetarian diet, so you transition from meat, gradually move on to vegetables. Now, when you're replacing red meat, and scientific studies have shown that when you're replacing red meat, you pull off red meat completely from your diet and you replace it with proteins that come from plant sources. So you replace it with nuts, seeds, so derive your protein from there, all your pulses, etc. Then the impact on your health, in terms of your cardiac health, in terms of your kidney health, diabetes, liver, whatever, and also in terms of mortality. So the effect is major. But studies are still being conducted on how does this impact the plant-based meats, because we need to know what exactly, apart from the pulse protein, what exactly is hiding in that fake or mock meat or that plant-based meat. So label reading is extremely important. And we also know that the sodium content of mock meats is much higher than what you would get in red meat. So if you're looking at converting because of your high blood pressure, then you would be doing yourself more harm because of the high sodium content. Similarly, if you think that, I'm on this wellness path and I'm going to eat a mock meat burger today, right? Excellent. But I'm going to eat the mock meat burger with French fries and a gallon of an aerated beverage. Then how is that going to help your health? So you are not doing anything. You're just mentally trying to placate yourself and say that, I'm on the path to good health. I'm smoking, I'm drinking a gallon of an aerated beverage, but I'm putting in that small portion of mock meat into it. So it's defeating the purpose. And I always say people that and definitely Michael must be doing these things. We do pulled pork burgers like in the past, but we now do pulled jackfruit burgers. We use the right spices, the smoked sauces which we make at home, etc. And there are so many times when we actually fooled people into actually believing, and we put out pictures also on Instagram and whatever, and it called it a pulled pork burger, but it's actually a pulled jackfruit burger. So it all depends, and I'm guessing my kids would be witness to this, is from the time they were young, Rajma always went into the purees for their red sauces, etc. And that has taken on, and you've gradually moved away from being meat eaters and encouraged health on your plate. Now, when it comes to immunity booster, you have to remember that detoxification, etc. Your body has your lungs, your kidneys to work with the detoxification process. And the buzzword, especially at the time of the pandemic, is immunity, right? Everyone's looking to up their immunity. So simple things like I stated right at the beginning, that you stop smoking, you stop drinking, your immunity will increase. But there are times when you cannot, or say for example, the person next to you is smoking. So you become the passive smoker. Then what are the things that you can do? And what I recommend is a combination of herbs and spices which just up the immunity. So, when we talk about superfoods, when we talk about foods that increase the immunity because they have micronutrients in larger amounts, like they're kind of little concentrated sources, then it always helps in bettering your health. So that's why I would recommend. But then again, on a regular basis, you can't say that I took an immunity shot today and for the next 3 months, I will be absolutely healthy, because that really doesn't make sense. I took a curcumin shot today and I will take it tomorrow and the day after. I will not put pepper into it. So that pepperin is not going to help to activate the curcumin from that turmeric shot that you took. And I'm doing things like this because of social media, because of everyone selling the golden latte and whatever. So that defeats the purpose. So read up, don't use Google as your doctor, of course, but read up, understand from qualified professionals, and then choose that path to get.
Yeah, thank you. I have nothing against good health, honestly, much as I don't look healthy and I may not be healthy, but I do definitely have a problem on the fact that the FMCG companies globally and in India use this as immunity boosting, as an advertising mode to probably make in extra money even at such times like this. Giri, your thoughts on this from your side?
Yeah.
A lot of work on immunity and good health that you guys are doing. You want to share something?
Sure. Let me start with the first point you raised, on the meat versus vegetarian debate. As you know, I'm not an expert on the diet or the food science side of it. Let me talk about it more on the sustainability, from the sustainability perspective. Meat, generally to produce 1 kilo of meat, studies have shown that you are causing more damage to the environment. First of all, the land use pattern. You are destroying huge acres of or areas of forest land. Secondly, the greenhouse gases emitted by while producing 1 kilo of, say, mutton or meat is almost 60 to 65 kilogram per kilo. And in beef it is even much more higher than this. On the other hand, a vegetable which is high in protein, say peas or soya bean, it hardly produces 1 or 2 kilograms of gases per kilo of the product. So that is why people have started thinking about how we can reduce the consumption of meat, which is supposed to be a high source of protein. And this entire search for alternate protein has been becoming more and more popular. Companies like McDonald's, as you know, a lot of activists are going against this company, saying that they are destroying forest land in South American countries like Bolivia and so on and so forth. So this is the real logic behind that. And that is why it is becoming more popular, and companies like ours, Griffith Foods, is in that, helping customers to see how they can produce replacement for meat. But as an Indian, as a vegetarian, I come from a vegetarian. Now I eat meat, but originally we are vegetarians. We have survived without eating meat. And a lot of people in India are still vegetarians by eating pulses or by eating some of the other legumes which are rich in meat. We have survived. So I don't think it's a big deal. However, people who are predominantly, depending on non-vegetarian diet, for them, it could be a challenge. So all the work, that is being done for this is helping not only for those, people to have an alternate source of protein, but also in the long run, it will help us reduce the greenhouse gas emission and it will do a lot of good for the environment. And immunity boosters, there are a lot of, if you go through the internet and do a search, you find a lot of studies have been done. Tons and tons of studies have been done evaluating so many agricultural produce, be it herbs, be it botanicals, or teas, different kinds of teas, turmeric, like Sharmin mentioned. These are all found to have, immunity boosting properties. They have proved it through clinical research and other things. So there is a science to it. And forget about all this. If you look at Ayurveda or if you look at our traditional medicines, they have been, recommending, ashwagandha, or they have been recommending turmeric, ginger, all these things as boosters of immunity. So there is a lot of truth in this. And however, like anything else, there are people who exploit this to their advantage. Apart from that, I think a lot of research has to be done, a lot of studies has to be done in order to even, not only in India, even in the other countries, one or two generations ago, they knew how to find immunity boosters without, in their own vicinity. Like if you go to European countries, they have this mountain tea, which is supposed to be immunity boosters, and a lot of papers are there authenticating this. So this is something people need to spend more time on and try to come up with good products that will help people to benefit from this.
Thank you, Giri. Michael, I want to come to you and start with you on talking about food waste. Okay, specifically because as a chef, it's a cause that it's very dear to you. I know that. How difficult is it for chefs in commercial kitchens to actually start thinking and feeling on food waste? Some thoughts and maybe some examples that you could give of how you have, what you've been doing on food waste yourself.
One is grooming the staff. It's very important to train the staff. A lot of the staff come from the villages. They've not seen a lot of the produce that they've had seen that you would have in the cities. So they tend to overuse it. They tend to discard a lot of things. I've seen bits of cheese, bits of vegetables, all just fancy cheeses, just going into the dustbin. If you wash your vegetables well, yes, you can use the peels. You can dehydrate the peels, stuff like that. It's all about grooming your staff end of the day. I know we've got a lot of executive chefs here on board, but a lot of them don't train their staff. They leave it for the junior staff to train the newcomers. And I remember one time, chef is also here on this. I was at the Taj Flight kitchen and I was alone in the butchery. And I was cutting and chucking things on the side. And in walks Chef Satish Arora. And I'm in a panic because he was the big boss. And he just came and showed me how to cut a chicken. I remember that. And that's when one took an interest in it. It's because the senior chefs came and taught us. But I've been in a lot of situations where the senior chefs are not even bothered. They'll come, give their instructions and gone. They won't sit with you and explain the how, the why, waste management, why is it important? Because I guess a lot of them didn't know it themselves. It's a very important thing to know about waste management, especially now.
I know I'm going to put you in a spot by asking you this, but I wish you will answer this as with all candidness. We have heroes in global chef world who are, real heroes on food waste management.
Yes.
Right? They have created an industry on waste management. Why don't we have any Indian chef who has reached that stage or who wants to reach that stage? Your thoughts? I know you're smiling, but please, I want an answer from you, Michael.
A lot of the good chefs in this country love to be in the kitchen. They're not very social media friendly. They're not PR friendly. You've got a lot of these fake TV chefs who are out there, clueless, don't even know what they're doing. You have people coming out of food shows and calling themselves master chefs. What's a regular chef going to do when a fake chef is calling himself a master chef? A fake chef from a TV show is calling himself a master chef. The real chef is going to take the back seat. He's going to say, enough of all the BS. Let me just do my work properly. I've been outspoken about this always. And I think it's time that our real chefs come out and start speaking, come out and be a voice. Because at the end of the day, you are culinary gods. People will listen to you only when you speak up. And you can change the mindset of people for organic food, for sustainability, only if you speak up. If you're going to get a fake chef on TV, doesn't know even, about sustainability, promoting a product that is supposedly sustainable, general public is going to believe them. Okay, but if the real chefs are taken on board and put on a platform the general public will listen. And how do you do that? You do that from your very own restaurant. You do it from your very own social media platform. Stop waiting for media to pick you up. Stop waiting for TV to pick you up. Create your own videos, create your own YouTube channels, create your own blogs. And there are a lot of our chefs who willingly help you to do it, guide you. I've got so many chefs. Chefs, how do I take a photograph? How do I use my camera to promote my work? And yes, we do help.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm happy for your candidness, if I may say that. Okay, I'm going to take in, before I move to the last part, I'm going to quickly go into the last questions. So, Giri, this one's for you from Harsh. He says, you can read this in the Q&A if you can pop in. It's a little longer, but I'll still read it. It says, organic food is expensive and we as a country are still not ready for it. The farmers still paid the same price as the chemically grown vegetables. If companies tie up with farmers directly for the produce, only then it could be a game changer, or else the middleman will always get richer and the farmer always sufferer. Is this tie-up possible? And how does a farmer enroll for one of these programs? I'm clubbing two of his questions together.
Right. No, let me answer the second question first because it's easier to answer it. You know, we tried a lot of methods to see how to pick farmers. Ultimately, we found the best method is to make our existing farmers recommend a new member. You know, so that we found to be, you know, most advantageous method of selecting farmers. And we have, as a policy, as far as possible, we don't refuse any farmer who wants to join the program. Now, sometimes it may put pressure on us because we have to buy the produce. But if any farmer who is interested, if he's recommended by fellow farmers, if they accept him, then we go ahead and enlist him in our program. So coming to organic, again, you know, my simple answer to a complex question is that we need to respect the supply-demand situation always. You know, if there is a demand, then anything sells. If you overproduce, then you can't sell it. So the thing is to match the demand and the supply. And I think organic is still a niche market today. There are certain segments of the society who actually want organic produce. And if you are able to find those guys who are really looking out for this kind of produce and match the supply to meet their demand, there will be a market. And of course, the price will be paid. So, however, if you don't follow this simple principle of supply demand, if you try to produce organic and try to sell it, you will find it difficult because the market is still small. Like I said, if there is anybody doing organic, following some of the organic practices, it is fine. He is going to benefit because these practices are going to give him better returns on his investment on the farming activities. However, if you are trying to sell something in a place where there's no demand, it's going to be difficult. Either you create the demand or you adjust the supply. That's my simple answer to your complex question.
Thank you, Giri. So sticking to organic, Puneet has a comment and I'm going to read it out for everyone's benefit. He says organic food, approved organic control bodies should be introduced. They should have experts like Ma'am Shamin on their board to set the parameters. Once met, issue certificates which prove to be a symbol of authenticity, annual audits to be conducted, allowing the standards to be maintained. This would not only gain the confidence of the end consumer, but given the right direction to businesses who are keen to take organic route. Rightly said, Puneet, easier said overseas than, and I say it in a good way, because the systems are there. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to go through the bureaucracy here in India. It's not that we don't have an organic food board. We have the FSSAI and the rest of the stuff, but the whole organic food movement, the labeling is such a mess. I don't think that they know how to come out of it. But point well taken, and I will invite Ma'am Shamin to take this forward with the boards. You work very closely with some of them. Try and take this up in a good way as a good cause, Shamin. Thank you. And coming to you, Shamin, on your thoughts on waste, food waste. You do a lot of food waste. You've written something about food waste and saving, doing some stuff on food waste. Your thoughts on that, please?
So that's exactly. So the book was supposed to be launched last month, but because of lockdown, we're delayed. And very soon we're going to be doing promotions, etc. But the most important thing is when you're maximizing the efficiency of all the foods, that health foods in your recipes. So like I've said, very simply, if you want to reduce the phytate content in your lentils. So people look at proteins, they look at pulse protein, and they also realize that it's going to give them a lot of gas. So simple things like soaking overnight, soaking your pulses overnight is definitely going to reduce the phytate content. Then if you wash your grains thoroughly, we all know that spinach has iron, right? But how much of that iron can be absorbed in the system? So a very simple thing of using a squeeze of lemon will help reduce the phytic acid, which is an anti-nutrient, which prevents the absorption of the nutrients that are required by your system. So simple things like this will help to minimize nutrient waste. Okay, so when you're talking about the plate of food that's already on your table and you're trying to minimize the nutrient waste and have the best absorption for your system, then you do these things to kind of tweak the pairings of food, for example. So if you have fat soluble vitamins, ADEK, and foods rich in the fat soluble vitamins. Now, if your meal is then you pair that fat soluble vitamin source with a good quality olive oil or coconut oil, avocados, etc., in the same meal, then the absorption increases 3 or 4 times. So, or for example, if you take zinc and iron, nutrients that everyone's popping pills nowadays, especially with zinc. But if you have your simple things like beef, liver, etc., or all sources of food sources of zinc and iron, and you want to up the absorption, you just look at simple things like sulfur. You combine sulfur. And where do you get that sulfur from? Your garlic, your onions, your egg yolks all have natural sulfur in there. So you do food pairings there, and then that nutrition on your plate. And I'm not talking about food pairings and food and wine pairings, but I'm talking about simply cooking food in such a way that your body is able to absorb those nutrients much better, and the impact is definitely going to be good health for a longer period of time. So that's what we generally tell our clients.
Thank you. I have to ask you this, Shamin. When you and your family go out to eat in restaurants under normal circumstances, does your family find it very difficult to show a menu to you because you go on analyzing the health benefit aspect of what is going in the menu dish? Does it happen?
No, you know what, Satyan? Actually, you have to just look at our poor fellow because he's the only one who's not in the field of nutrition. Both the girls are also nutritionists. So when we look at a menu, we're not looking at the nutritive value, but we're looking at the taste simply because, and I say this without again being pompous or whatever, but all of us are, with the exception of me, the rest of them are excellent cooks. So when we eat food outside, they're always looking at it, but mom, that prawn curry could have been made better at home. We cook such good food at home, so why do we need to go out? So to answer your question, it's not about the nutrition aspect, but the taste aspect. So we love the food that's cooked at home, or that they get into the kitchen and make. That the most important thing when they go out is not how much of oil it has or doesn't have, or how many calories or whatever. But the first thing that they look at is the presentation and, of course, the taste of the food. Can cook food better at home. Why do we need to waste so much money by coming up? So
thank you, Shamin. Giri, on the food waste part, I wanted to pick your brains. Griffith has done some fantastic work with and doing still with regrained, the banana flour, and a lot of other stuff that you guys are doing. You want to talk about that and share with our audiences?
Right. Food waste, according to me, there are 2 kinds of food waste. One is the highly avoidable food waste, which again happens, because of food going bad or, passing the shelf life. This all happens because of, inability to plan properly. So in Griffith, we are, trying to bring in more scientific systems for forecasting demand and trying to match that and reducing those kind of avoidable waste. which can be taken, in a broader perspective and make it happen even in bigger sphere, like the government can do when wheat goes waste because of not having sufficient capacity for storage. Those kind of waste, what I call as avoidable waste, which with some good planning, good infusion of infrastructure, we can avoid those. On the other hand, there are some other necessary waste. For example, when you make orange juice out of orange, you throw away the pomace or the skin. However, those can be used. If you are able to look at this not as a waste, but as an opportunity, invest in research and development and try to extract usable products out of this, then you have an opportunity here. You're converting what is being thrown away into an opportunity. I think Griffith has taken this stand and trying to see, like we have done some work. We are spending a lot of R&D resources on, for example, coffee husk. Again, a big waste, and entire the strip below the equator, all the way from Indonesia to say Costa Rica, they're all huge coffee growing countries, and huge amount of husks or the parchment which is thrown away is found to have good nutritional value. So can we develop some useful product out of that? Talking about regrained is the spent grain when you make beer, could be barley or whatever. So this is what is taken. It is normally thrown away after the beer is made. It is thrown away. So this we try to convert into nutritious candy bars or many other applications because it is still rich in a lot of nutrients. So that is one example which Satyan was talking about. Banana flour, the farmers waste. When they do grading, there are a lot of bananas which are supposed to be immature, which will not ripe. So these bananas are normally thrown away by the farmers. However, we have started a project in Ecuador, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Panama, where we have put processing facilities in partnership who take these bananas, which are normally thrown away, and convert them into what we call as banana flour, which is supposed to be very rich in resultant starch and supposed to be good for you. So we are trying to convert this into useful products and applications. So there are many such food waste projects. So my only message here is that some of the waste that is happening can be looked at as an opportunity and converted into a profit-making business.
Thank you, Giri. Thank you for that detailed explanation. Michael, on my last segment, before I take the final comments that are there, last point from my side for you, and then moving to the other panelists. There is this whole huge thing about sustainable tableware, okay? Like edible fork, edible spoons, edible plates, replacement straws, globally as well as in India. How practical is it in the long run? Today, it's a fad. Okay, I feel it's a fad. There are industries that have come up. There are companies both in India and overseas that are really doing good. Honestly, tell me, do you see a time when restaurants will only have edible cutlery and crockery?
No.
Why do you say that? Thank you for the honest answer, but why do you say that?
A lot of us still want to go out and dine with that finesse, with that little bit sense of luxury. If you're just going to be shoving down too much of sustainability, people are going to back off at some point of time. If I'm going to eat from a spoon that is made out of flour or some kind of leftovers, it's going to go rancid at some point of time. It's going to go get weevils in it at some point of time. It's going to get insects into it at some point of time. How long are you going to keep that? The shelf life is also questionable. In India, we all want to eat fresh food, right? Now, if you're going to tell me that you're going to give me a spoon that has been lying in a packet for 6 months, and then you're going to put it on my plate, how's the guest going to look at it? Think of from the point of view as a guest. He's coming out to eat, to dine for an experience. There's only so much he will take from the point of view of sustainability. So you also have to be very playing both the cards. If I'm doing a roadside thela, it's a different thing. If I'm doing a pani puri stall or something, and I'm saying I'm giving you these kind of spoons or cutlery, it's fine. But not from the point of view of, I would say, a fine dine restaurant or a regular restaurant. I doubt it will work.
So let me prod you with this. Let's say that we had an investor and you were on board and he says, I only want a sustainable restaurant, sustainable menu, sustainable crockery, cutlery, whatever, edible stuff. And because of the turnover and the whole psyche of being a sustainable restaurant, you as the curator, would you then still say no, or would you agree with this?
No. See, you only get known when you start putting your foot down and standing up for your beliefs. If you don't, you're just one of the 100 other 1,000 chefs coming out. Okay, and that's what I teach the students when I'm training them also. If stand up for the dish that you are making, stand up for your creation, stand up for your concept, and make a benchmark for yourself. So if you're saying sustainability, say yes to it, but also know the cons of it. So you have to draw the line somewhere. Like earlier we said, too much of a good thing is also a bad thing. You know?
Thank you. Giri, Karnataka was one of the first states that started edible cutlery. And now, of course, it's all over the place. Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh are doing that. How comfortable would you be in eating out of edible cutlery, crockery, if you went to a decent restaurant?
Yeah, as long as it is functional, I don't mind it. I don't want it breaking in my mouth, and it should serve the purpose, and I don't have any reservations of trying it out. You know.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Shamen, your thoughts on edible tableware?
So I will talk in terms of my clients. So a lot of them want to be carb free, right? So the minute you have a spoon that is made of flour, okay, and even though you kind of tell them that it's not going to, you don't need to be eating it at the end of the meal. But what if it, you know, their question to me would then be, what if it in the hot soup, in the bowl of hot soup, it disintegrates? Then I'm going to have gluten and I want to be gluten free and whatever. So in the long run, I mean, you have to weigh the pros and cons. You have to look at it, you know, follow that middle path and kind of give people an option. If they want to do it, I mean, go by it. But if they don't want to and they're very averse to this whole thing of carbs, then you have to look at other means of sustaining.
Great. On your earlier comment about the restaurant that I asked you about ordering, Kayosh says, tell your hubby to order. Or in jest, he says that, you know him and how funny he is. Thank you, Kayosh. And as a closing comment, Michael, Chef Satish Arora has a very lovely statement for you. He says, Chef Michael, I'm very proud of you and your skills and boldness. I've tasted your food and in my opinion, you are a shining star.
Thank you, Chef.
Great. So I've had a fantastic session with all three of you. Thank you for your candidness, for your honesty, straightforwardness. And thank you once again for doing this with as much of passion that you have outside the webinars on sustainability. You brought it, more of that in this. Thank you once again. Any closing statements from all three of you before we say sign off?
It was a wonderful session and having some wonderful participants as well. Really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. Giri? And,
I think I would like to thank you, Satyam, for conducting this. I have learned a lot in today's session. That is something I would like to take home. And one of the messages I want to share with everyone is that, you know, sustainability is something, you know, it should not be an effort. You know, it should come, you know, like your normal way of doing business. It should be part of your business strategy. And then you will be creative enough to find the ways of being sustainable without indulging in charity or giving away freely. So this is the message, you know, which I have learned the hard way, and I would like to share with everyone. So thanks once again, everyone, for being very patient and listening to us. And it has been a very enjoyable 2 hours, nearly 2 hours for me.
Thank you, Giri. Shamin, your thoughts, please.
So at the onset, I had told the attendees that this is going to be a great session with great take-home value. I don't know about you all, but I definitely have learned a lot today. And thank you so much, Satyan. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Giri, for all those wonderful inputs. And thank you all the attendees who decided to type in and send us messages. And go the sustainable way and stay blessed with good health always.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Shamin. Thank you,
Thanks.
Michael.
Thank you.
And thank you, Giri. Have a wonderful evening, all of you. Stay well, stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you.